It was astounding just how much adults struggle to teach us children to read and write, and do math and all sorts of other trumpery, like properly using forks and knives at lunch, or using our manners literally everywhere else. Though I've never met a child that needed classes in playing pranks or causing trouble. Almost every child figured that out by themselves, without a bunch of pedagogics, textbooks, or other weird educational measures. It's funny because just the lesson before that soon-to-be faithful at Wednesday, our religion teacher had read to us a quote that went about something like this: "Become like the children, else you will be denied access to heaven." It almost seemed like the Bible agreed that causing light-hearted mischief and trouble wasn't as bad as the adults always pretended it was. I don't know about you, but I'd love to meet a guy who said that, quote, just to ask about it. Finally, the school's headmaster entered the auditorium, his steps heavy on the linoleum flooring. In both senses of the word, for one because he was undeniably corpulent, and for another because he looked quite full of himself as he stepped towards the lectern. Said lectern had the school's chosen slogan written broadly on its front. Solomon, the sage spoke, "Pay attention and learn and grow up to be smart." I almost felt like I was the only one in the entire auditorium who had ever noticed that saying. Solomon likely wasn't a name that your average 8-year-old recognized. Maybe they would have if the slogan had used Ernie Byrd or Pippi Longstockings or some video game action hero. But oh well, what teacher would listen to an 8-year-old girl advising them to change their school slogan? And behind that unappealing lectern now stood our headmaster Lunches. For some reason, Lunches was his real name, even though I'd never seen him bring an actual lunch. All he ever brought was an apple and a banana. He looked over the student body that counted maybe 350 first to fourth graders, a little less because a lot of students had fallen ill in the cold weather of the last weeks. And maybe it were a little more girls than boys. Headmaster Lunches coughed awkwardly and fumbled with the lock of his briefcase on the desk next to him. I had to bite back a laugh because I noticed the tip of the banana and the red jar of an apple peeking out from the briefcase. Despite the odd circumstances, it seemed like he had packed his usual ration for lunch break. He read his address from a sheet of print paper he held in his other hand. It took him a second to pry his reading glasses from a pocket and another before he'd actually placed them on his nose. Then he noticed a smudge on one of the lenses and spent an entire minute meticulously cleaning them with a corner of his dress shirt. Just as he wanted to start a speech, dignified as ever, he realized that he'd been holding the sheet upside down the entire time and quickly turned it around. I could swear I saw a flash of embarrassment on his face when he looked at his lunch that was openly visible to the entirety of his school, quickly followed by him snapping the briefcase shut. Worried that he had somehow damaged his lunch with a rash action, he reopened the briefcase to check. The apple nearly fell out before he pushed it back into its place. By now his glasses hung halfway across his face, and he adjusted them once more, checking his note sheet one last time, mouth drawn tight as he waited for the student body to shut up. Then he spoke. "Dear children, I am terribly sorry, but I come bearing unfortunate news. As some of you might have noticed, our much-cherished religion classroom has been attacked with multiple loose ceiling plates, some of which fell onto an unsuspecting class just yesterday. We had a craftsman come over to take a look at the damages, and what can I say? A company that went bankrupt a while ago, responsible for the renovation of our school, 7 years ago scampered the whole operation. They used asbestos, a material widely considered highly dangerous to anyone's health, and thus banned from indoor use. Now, the entire basement requires another renovation from a special company. At the same time, we have to check if the previous firm implemented asbestos anywhere else in the building. It's going to be dangerous work. All the workers will have to wear masks any time they're even entering the school premises. For that reason, we have no choice but to cease all educational activities for the time being. You will have a week or longer of unscheduled holidays." We nearly forgot to breathe with a surge of surprise and undiluted happiness that flooded the rows of the auditorium, leaving Mr. Lunches one last chance to speak the words, "You must feel terribly saddened," before he was drowned out by a deafening choir of 330 children screaming with joy, minus the one that had fallen ill. Surely they felt sad that they had fallen ill for nothing. Now it was 350 minus maybe 20 children who started hooting, yodeling, cheering, and whatever other noise they managed to come up with. The local church choir that started blaring Christmas carols the second December rolled around would have sounded like a feeble whine in comparison. Not that I would have minded singing "O Thou Joyful Day" right now. Silent Night, on the other hand, would have been wholly inappropriate in the face of the terrible commotion that wafted through the poor school's auditorium. I looked at the large clock above the entry door, and it must have been at least 5 minutes, in which Mr. Lunches wouldn't have stood a chance of being heard by a single soul in the room. He shot desperate glances towards his briefcase. He seemed to be quite hungry and wished for lunch break to come sooner rather than later. Then he looked pleadingly at the sheet of paper in his hands, as if it would give him the clue how to quiet down 350 minus approximately 20 cheering and jeering children. When we finally did, even an entire auditorium of children joyful about a week or longer of unexpected holidays was bound to run out of energy at some point, our headmaster smiled sorely in a way that promised nothing good for the future. I am most certain that you are simply overjoyed that the renovations likely won't last longer than a week. Be assured that I pushed all buttons to speed up the process. We had to apply for a large amount of money in a very short amount of time. And in the end we were still missing some of the necessary means for the upcoming renovation. Luckily, I was able to secure that missing sum by crossing off dessert from the school menu. For the next 2 years, all the school will be able to afford for the next 2 years will be apples and bananas. No more puddings, no more candy, no more ice cream for at least 2 years. Our headmaster grinned madly because he just successfully forced his exact diet onto every single pupil in school, and a wave of horrified "oh no's" ran through the auditorium.